If lies were currency, Jackson would have been rich. He was sprawled on the edge of his cluttered apartment, the hum of neon lights from the harbor outside painting streaks of blue across his tired face. His latest assignment, which he had convinced himself was just another story about corporate corruption in the port city, had somehow landed him in the middle of the most personal revelation of his life. He heard the door click behind him before he saw him. Eli, the man who had slowly infiltrated every corner of Jackson's world, stood in the doorway, the subtle tension in his jaw betraying more than his carefully cultivated calm. Jackson's heart betrayed him, skipping a beat, then racing as if it had been waiting for this exact moment. Eli's presence always had that effect, a combination of warmth and the quiet danger of unspoken truths. "Hey," Eli said, voice soft but deliberate, carrying a gravity that made Jackson's chest tighten. "Hey," Jackson replied, trying and failing to sound casual. He didn't notice his hands shaking until he caught his reflection in the tablet screen. Eli stepped closer, and Jackson felt the familiar magnetic pull, the kind that made him forget everything except the man in front of him. Yet tonight, something was different. There was an uncharacteristic shadow behind Eli's eyes, a hesitation that spoke of secrets Jackson wasn't sure he wanted to uncover but couldn't resist. "You've been quiet," Jackson said, breaking the silence. The words came out sharper than he intended, more accusatory than affectionate. He hated himself instantly for it, but the truth was, he had been quiet, too quietly suspicious, quietly wondering, quietly fearing what Eli might be hiding. "I've been thinking," Eli said, his eyes darting toward the neon glow outside. He paused, then took a measured step forward. "About us, about the future, about what's coming." Jackson swallowed hard. His stomach twisted into knots. He had suspected that Eli had secrets, but never imagined they would affect him this profoundly. Their lives, already intertwined in ways that scared him with their intimacy, were on the brink of irrevocable change. "What's coming?" Jackson asked cautiously, heart hammering against his ribs. Eli hesitated, and in that moment, the space between them felt impossibly vast. He opened his mouth, closed it again, then finally spoke, each word carefully measured. "It's about the baby." Jackson froze. His mind raced, scrambling to connect dots that hadn't existed in his understanding of their relationship until this very moment. A baby? He hadn't even imagined this scenario. He hadn't expected the future to come so fast, to arrive with such staggering, beautiful force. "You mean, ours?" Jackson's voice was barely a whisper, a mix of hope, fear, and disbelief. Eli nodded, but the gesture was heavy, laden with unspoken truths that made Jackson's chest tighten further. "Yes, but there's something you need to know. Something I should have told you months ago." Jackson's heart stuttered. The apartment, the neon reflections, the hum of the city, it all seemed to fade away, leaving only Eli standing there with his secret, the weight of which was now shared with him. "Tell me," Jackson said. There was no patience left in him, only an urgent, aching need to know the man he loved completely. Eli's gaze dropped for the first time, and Jackson noticed the tremor in his hands. I didn't want to lose you. Not before we even had a chance to try this, to be us." The confession landed with the impact of a thunderclap. Jackson stepped closer, daring to reach for Eli's hand, to anchor himself in the man who had become his home. Eli flinched at first, then allowed the touch, and in that instant the tension shifted. The unspoken words between them became a bridge, fragile but alive. "You should have told me," Jackson said, voice breaking slightly, though anger and hurt mingled with an overwhelming surge of love. "You should have trusted me." "I know," Eli whispered, "and I'm sorry. I wanted to protect us. But now, we can't go back. All I can do is be honest with you now." Jackson swallowed, feeling a swell of emotion that was part relief, part longing, part raw vulnerability. He wanted to be furious. He wanted to demand explanations. But all he could do was look into Eli's eyes and see the man who had quietly become indispensable, who had quietly become family, who was now about to become a father alongside him. Then start now, Jackson said, voice steadying, determination threading through his tone. Tell me everything. Eli nodded, and they moved to the small couch by the window. The city lights cast soft, flickering reflections on their faces, illuminating the raw intimacy between them. Eli took a deep breath, and Jackson braced himself for the truths that would redefine their lives. I found out a few months ago, Eli began, his fingers fidgeting slightly with the edge of the couch, that I was going to be a father, and I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to lose you before we even got to have a life together. I thought I could handle it alone, but I can't. I don't want to. Jackson reached for his hand again, gripping it firmly. You won't have to, he said softly, a warmth spreading through his chest. We'll do this together, whatever it takes. Eli's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I was afraid, he admitted, voice trembling. Afraid that you'd think I made choices without you. That you'd leave. Jackson shook his head, brushing a stray lock of hair from Eli's forehead. I love you, he said, the words simple but absolute. And nothing you could hide or fear would change that. For a moment, they just sat there, hands intertwined, hearts beating in tandem against the backdrop of a city that never truly slept. Outside, ships glimmered with neon lights, the harbor alive with the constant motion of 2035. Inside, the two men found a rare stillness, a fleeting but precious sanctuary of honesty and intimacy. And in that stillness, Jackson realized something profound. The world could be chaotic, cruel, and unpredictable, but he and Eli, together, could face it all. Secrets had the power to wound, but love had the power to heal, to bring them closer than ever. The journey ahead wouldn't be simple. It wouldn't be without challenges or heartbreak. But as Jackson held Eli close, feeling the steady rhythm of his pulse against his own, he understood one undeniable truth. This was their life now, messy, complicated, but undeniably theirs. And for the first time in months, maybe years, Jackson allowed himself to hope. The next morning, the harbor was bathed in a cold, silvery light. Fog rolled over the water, softening the sharp lines of the futuristic ships docked along the piers. Jackson sat at the edge of his bed, coffee cup in hand, staring out at the water. The city was waking up, but he felt suspended in a quiet limbo, caught between the truth Eli had just revealed and the future they would now navigate together. Eli had left early, citing a meeting he couldn't miss, but Jackson knew it wasn't just business. There was tension in every step Eli took, a careful choreography of hiding and revealing. Jackson couldn't help but replay the conversation from last night over and over in his mind. Every word, every glance, every hesitant pause, it was like decoding a language they had both learned in fragments. By mid-morning, Jackson's phone buzzed insistently. He frowned at the screen. It was a message from Eli. Meet me at the waterfront. I need you to see something. Curiosity mingled with a subtle undercurrent of fear. Jackson had learned long ago that Eli's cryptic messages often carried weight far beyond the words themselves. He dressed quickly, choosing something casual yet deliberate, something that said he was ready for both confrontation and comfort. The waterfront was quiet when he arrived, the usual hustle of the port subdued by early-hour mist. Eli stood near the edge of the dock, his silhouette outlined by the soft glow of neon lights still lingering from the previous night. Jackson approached cautiously, every step measured, wary of the storm he might be walking into. You're early, Eli said without turning. His voice was calm, but Jackson could hear the tension beneath it, the tremor of withheld emotion. I didn't know what I'd find, Jackson replied. But I'm here, so show me. Eli finally turned, and Jackson felt that familiar pull, the simultaneous comfort and disquiet that had defined their relationship for months. Eli's eyes were dark, almost stormy, and in them Jackson saw the weight of secrets yet untold. I wanted you to understand, Eli began, why I didn't tell you everything before, why I tried to manage it alone. Jackson's chest tightened. He had anticipated some revelation, but the truth, when delivered in the hushed, misty light of the dock, carried an almost unbearable gravity. Eli gestured toward a small crate beside the dock, half hidden under a tarp. It's about the arrangements. For the baby. The legal stuff. I didn't want you to be dragged into it before we were ready to face it together. Jackson stepped closer, lifting the tarp. Inside were stacks of papers, medical documents, and a small set of baby clothes folded neatly on top. He froze for a moment, the enormity of what he was seeing hitting him with full force. I didn't know what to say, Eli admitted, stepping closer, letting his hand brush Jackson's. The touch sent a shiver through him. I wanted to tell you in the right way, but everything's complicated, and I didn't want to push you away. Jackson swallowed, trying to steady his racing heart. Complicated doesn't scare me, he said softly, gripping Eli's hand firmly. We'll face it together no matter what. But I need honesty, Eli. No more half-truths. No more hiding. Eli's eyes glistened with emotion. He nodded, and for a moment, the air between them was charged with a fragile but palpable intimacy. They stood there, hands intertwined, hearts beating in unison against the quiet hum of the city's awakening. I need to tell you everything, Eli said finally, about the circumstances, about my fears, and about the choices I've made. But I can't do it all at once. It's too much to just throw at you. Jackson took a deep breath, feeling both dread and anticipation. Then start now. I'll listen. I'll take it all. And so, Eli began to unravel the layers of his past, the moments he had hidden even from himself. He spoke of the medical complications, of the initial uncertainty, of the people who had tried to influence his decisions. Jackson listened, absorbing every word, feeling the weight of Eli's fears, the burden of secrecy, and the courage it took to finally lay it all bare. Hours passed as they sat on the dock, talking in quiet, deliberate tones. The fog lifted slowly, revealing the city in soft, golden morning light. Ships moved in the distance, cranes lifted cargo with mechanical precision, and yet Jackson felt as if the world had narrowed down to just the two of them, sitting on that edge of possibility and confession. By midday, Eli had finished. He leaned back on the crate, exhausted but relieved. Jackson studied him, feeling a surge of protective instinct and love so fierce it nearly overwhelmed him. You've carried so much alone, Jackson said finally, voice gentle, reverent. And yet, you still came to me. You still trusted me with this. Eli smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and lingering worry. I didn't want to burden you, but I realize now. Keeping it from you was a burden in itself. Jackson reached out, cupping Eli's face with both hands. You're not alone anymore. Not ever. The words hung between them, unspoken promises etched into the silence of the harbor. For the first time since Eli's confession, Jackson felt a deep, anchoring certainty. Whatever challenges lay ahead, the public scrutiny, the legal hurdles, the personal fears, they would face them together. And as Eli leaned into Jackson's embrace, their bodies close enough to feel the warmth and rapid heartbeat of the other, Jackson felt something shift. The tension, the uncertainty, the fear, it all began to dissolve, replaced by a tender, unbreakable bond. Yet even as they held each other, Jackson sensed that the journey was far from over. Secrets had been revealed, yes, but the world beyond the harbor was vast and unpredictable. There would be obstacles, misunderstandings, and moments when the weight of reality threatened to pull them apart. But for now, in this rare, fleeting bubble of intimacy and honesty, they had each other. By the time the sun had climbed higher, painting the city in warm, golden hues, Jackson and Eli finally rose, hands still intertwined, moving toward the bustling streets with a newfound resolve. They walked side by side, a unit forged by confession, trust, and an undeniable love that had survived fear and secrecy. As they entered a small cafe overlooking the harbor, Eli whispered, almost shyly, I was afraid of losing you, but now, I'm ready. Ready for everything. With you. Jackson squeezed his hand, a soft but firm affirmation. Then we face it all together. No more hiding, no more secrets. Just using the life we're building. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Eli allowed himself to smile without hesitation, to feel the weight of fear lift from his shoulders. They sat down at a small table by the window, overlooking the port, and ordered coffee, their fingers still intertwined on the tabletop. The bustling world outside carried on as if oblivious to the quiet revolution of trust and love that had just occurred inside the tiny cafe. Jackson watched Eli laugh at something trivial, a joke about the waiter's oversized apron, and felt an ache of gratitude in his chest. This was the man he loved, the man he would raise a child with, the man who had fought through his own fears to finally stand beside him. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. Their conversation flowed easily now, laughter interspersed with quiet confessions and plans for the future. They discussed names, nursery ideas, and how they would navigate the complexities of parenthood while still nurturing their bond. Every detail, every shared thought, seemed to strengthen the invisible threads tying them together, weaving a tapestry of intimacy, trust, and hope. As the afternoon sun filtered through the large windows, Jackson realized something profound. Love wasn't just about passion or romance, it was about trust, vulnerability, and the courage to face the unknown together. And here, in the heart of the city that never truly slept, he had found that love with Eli, in all its messy, complicated, beautiful reality. Eli reached across the table, brushing a stray lock of Jackson's hair from his forehead, a tender gesture that spoke volumes. "Thank you," he whispered, "for staying, for believing, for everything." Jackson smiled, heart full, soul anchored. Always, no matter what. They stayed like that for hours, immersed in conversation, laughter, and the quiet thrill of shared vulnerability. Outside, the port city thrummed with life, oblivious to the small, intimate universe they had created within a cafe overlooking the harbor. And as the day faded into evening, Jackson knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever challenges the future held, the societal pressures, the legal battles, the uncharted waters of parenthood, they would face them side by side. Together, the truth had been revealed. The fear had been confronted, and in its place, something stronger had emerged. A love unshaken by secrecy, a bond forged in honesty, and a hope that promised not just survival, but joy. Jackson reached for Eli's hand again, intertwining their fingers, feeling the familiar warmth and solidity. "We're ready," he said softly. Eli nodded, eyes shining with unshed tears, but this time of joy, of relief, of anticipation for the life they were about to build. "Yes," he whispered, "we're ready." And in the quiet glow of the harbor lights, against the backdrop of a city racing toward the future, they took the first steps together into the unknown, anchored by trust, bound by love, and ready to embrace whatever came next, side by side, heart to heart, and hand in hand. The following week was a whirlwind. Jackson's work as a journalist left him little time to think beyond deadlines, interviews, and the ever-present hum of the port city's machinery. But no matter how busy he was, Eli lingered in his thoughts, soft, persistent, and impossible to ignore. Every glance at his phone, every notification about Eli's whereabouts, made Jackson's heart race. They were tethered by secrets now revealed, yet the fragile balance of trust felt like walking on glass. Eli had been distant in the mornings, returning only in the late evenings, often with hurried explanations of meetings or errands. Jackson couldn't tell if the tension in Eli's posture was exhaustion or worry, or if it was something else, something unspoken that still hung between them like a shadow. It wasn't until Thursday evening that Jackson found out exactly what that something was. He had stayed late at the office, finishing a report on a new corporate development at the port, when his phone buzzed insistently. It was a message from Eli. "Meet me at the old lighthouse." Now, the lighthouse stood at the far edge of the harbor, abandoned and weathered, a relic of the city's history. It was the kind of place that invited secrets, the kind of place where confessions could be both terrifying and liberating. Jackson drove there immediately, heart pounding, anticipation and dread tangled in equal measure. When he arrived, the lighthouse was bathed in the silver glow of the rising moon. Eli was already there, pacing near the water's edge, his silhouette sharp against the dark, undulating waves. Jackson stepped out of the car and called softly, "Eli!" Eli froze, then turned. Relief washed over his face for a brief moment before it was replaced by a shadow of worry. "Jackson," he said, voice low, "I'm glad you came. What's wrong?" Jackson asked, approaching him cautiously. There was a tension in Eli's stance, a tightness in his jaw that set Jackson's instincts on high alert. Eli exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. I got a call today, about the baby, about our plans." He paused, searching Jackson's eyes for a reaction, and Jackson felt a shiver of foreboding. "Who called?" Jackson pressed, concern threading through his tone. "It's complicated," Eli admitted. "It's someone from the clinic, someone who, well, they think I might be making decisions without considering the other parent." "Without considering you?" Jackson's stomach nodded. "And are you?" Eli shook his head quickly. "No, never. But the person Dr. Lornethery, skeptical. They want proof. They want legal documentation. They said they're worried about the baby's future." Jackson felt a rush of emotions, anger, fear, frustration, but underneath it all, there was something stronger, protectiveness. "So they're questioning us? Questioning our ability to raise this child?" Eli nodded, jaw tight. "They don't know us. They don't know what we've already decided, what we've already planned. And now, I think they're threatening to intervene if we don't comply." Jackson's heart pounded. He could feel the weight of the world pressing down, the fragile trust they had built teetering on the edge. But he refused to let it break them. "Not now. Not ever." "Then we fight it," Jackson said firmly, stepping closer, gripping Eli's shoulders. "We show them that we're ready, that we're a family, that no legal threat, no outside pressure can come between us." Eli's eyes glistened in the moonlight, a mixture of fear and relief. I don't want to lose you, Jackson. Not over this. Not over anything." "You won't," Jackson assured him. "I promise. We're in this together." They spent the night in the lighthouse, planning their next steps. Legal documents, consultations, hospital visits, they mapped out every detail, every possible challenge. And through it all, their hands never parted, their bodies close in a quiet intimacy that anchored them amidst the storm. By dawn, exhaustion had taken over, but so had a sense of unity. They left the lighthouse hand in hand, stepping into the waking city with a renewed resolve. The next few days were a blur of appointments, legal meetings, and tense discussions. Jackson found himself juggling work and the burgeoning reality of parenthood, while Eli navigated the bureaucracy with a quiet determination. There were moments of friction, misunderstandings, disagreements, but always, they returned to each other, grounding their connection in shared purpose and love. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at the courthouse, Jackson and Eli found themselves on the rooftop of Eli's apartment building, overlooking the harbor. The city stretched out before them, lights twinkling like stars scattered across water. Jackson wrapped his arms around Eli from behind, resting his chin on his shoulder. "We're going to be okay," Jackson murmured, feeling the warmth of Eli's body against his. Eli leaned back into him, exhaling slowly. "I hope so," he whispered. "But sometimes, it feels like the world is against us, like we're barely holding on." Jackson pressed a kiss to the side of Eli's neck. "We're stronger than we think, and we have each other. That's enough." For a moment, silence wrapped around them like a protective cloak. The city hummed below, indifferent to the intimate universe that had been carved out above it. And in that moment, Jackson felt the depth of their connection, not just love, but resilience, trust, and the quiet courage to face anything together. The following week brought more challenges. Dr. Lorne's scrutiny intensified, questions became demands, and the pressure of proving themselves weighed heavily on both men. Jackson's investigative instincts kicked in, gathering evidence, collecting statements, and building a case to show that their commitment to the child was unwavering. Eli, meanwhile, faced his own internal battlesphere of failure, doubt about his own decisions, and lingering guilt for withholding truths in the past. One night, after a particularly tense meeting, they returned to Eli's apartment. The tension between them was palpable, unspoken accusations and fears simmering just beneath the surface. Jackson stood in the kitchen, rubbing his temples. "I can't do this alone," Eli admitted finally, voice trembling. "I've been trying to protect you, but it's tearing me apart." Jackson turned, meeting Eli's gaze. "You're not alone. Not now, not ever. We face it together or we don't face it at all." Eli's eyes glistened with tears. "I'm scared, Jackson. I'm scared of failing, of losing you, of—" His voice broke. Jackson stepped forward, pulling Eli into a fierce embrace. "Shoo, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. We're gonna get through this and we're gonna be okay. I promise." Eli clung to him, letting the tension drain away, replaced by the warmth and security of shared strength. They stayed like that for hours, silent but united, hearts beating in rhythm, each drawing courage from the other. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, the world outside began to yield. Legal hurdles were overcome, hospital visits were navigated, and Dr. Lorne's skepticism softened as the couple demonstrated unwavering commitment. Jackson and Eli found moments of joy amidst the chaos late-night walks along the harbor, quiet dinners on Eli's balcony, and stolen kisses under the neon glow of the city. One evening, as they walked along the docks, Eli stopped suddenly, pulling Jackson close. "Look at that," he whispered, pointing to a small cargo ship illuminated by strings of lights. "Even in chaos, there's beauty." Jackson smiled, feeling the truth of those words resonate. "Yeah, even in chaos, we have each other." They stood together, watching the ship glide across the water, hands intertwined, hearts anchored in a bond that had been tested and strengthened. The fear, the uncertainty, the secrets, all of it had brought them closer, revealing the depth of their love and the resilience of their connection. As the weeks passed, the anticipation of the baby grew, mingling with the excitement of a life they were building together. Every kick, every scan, every small milestone was a reminder of the future they were creating, not just as lovers, but as partners, as parents, as a family. One night, after a long day at the clinic, Jackson and Eli returned to Eli's apartment. They collapsed on the couch, exhaustion mingling with contentment. Jackson traced circles on Eli's hand, feeling the warmth and solidity of their connection. "We're really doing this," Jackson said softly. "We're building a life together, a family." Eli smiled, resting his head on Jackson's shoulder. "I know, and I couldn't imagine doing it with anyone else." They stayed there, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the city lights flicker and shimmer across the harbor. Outside, the world moved on, oblivious to the quiet miracle unfolding in a small apartment overlooking the port. Inside, Jackson and Eli had found something extraordinary: love forged in honesty, strengthened by adversity, and anchored in the promise of a shared future. As the night deepened, Jackson whispered, "No matter what comes, we'll face it together. Always." Eli nodded, eyes closed, a serene smile on his face. "Always." And in that moment, beneath the vast, indifferent sky, two hearts beat as one, ready to embrace the challenges, the joys, and the uncharted journey that lay ahead. Months passed, each day blending the chaos of city life with the quiet anticipation of the new life they were about to welcome. Jackson and Eli had settled into a rhythm, balancing work, appointments, and preparations for the baby with a sense of purpose that strengthened their bond. The once tense legal hurdles had eased, Dr. Lorne's scrutiny replaced by cautious support, and the couple's commitment to each other and the child became undeniable to anyone who crossed their path. One crisp morning, Jackson walked through the harbor, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise paint the water in shades of gold and rose. The city was alive, cranes moving, ships gliding through the harbor, and yet he felt a rare sense of calm. Eli would meet him at the docks in an hour, and for once, Jackson allowed himself to simply breathe, savoring the fleeting serenity before the day's responsibilities resumed. Eli arrived as promised, leaning casually against the railing, the breeze tousling his hair. His expression was unreadable at first, a mix of mischief and tenderness. Jackson approached, feeling that familiar pull, the quiet electricity that always hummed between them. "You look like you've been thinking about something important," Jackson said, sliding an arm around Eli's shoulders. "I have," Eli admitted, resting his head briefly on Jackson's shoulder. "About us, about the future, about everything." Jackson squeezed his arm. "Everything's still ours to shape. We're ready for it all." Eli smiled, a real, unguarded smile that lit up his entire face. "Yes, we are." The weeks that followed were filled with small, intimate moments. They painted the nursery together, debated baby names with laughter and gentle teasing, and spent long nights talking about hopes and fears. Every kick, every scan, every flutter of life inside Eli's belly was a reminder of the family they were building, a family born not just of biology but of love, trust, and resilience. One evening, as the city lights shimmered across the water, Jackson and Eli took a quiet walk along the docks. The harbor, once a place of tension and secrets, now felt like a sanctuary. They paused near the edge, looking out at the illuminated ships, the gentle sway of the waves reflecting in their eyes. "I can't believe how far we've come," Jackson murmured. "From secrets and fear to this, to hope." Eli took his hand, intertwining their fingers. "I know, and I'm grateful for you, for us, for every challenge that made us stronger." Jackson leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to Eli's temple. "We've survived everything together, and now we get to create something new, a life we'll cherish forever." The night grew quieter, the city slowing around them, but their hearts beat in perfect synchrony. For the first time in months, Jackson felt fully present, fully at peace. They had navigated secrecy, fear, and uncertainty, and now stood together, ready to embrace parenthood, love, and life itself. Then came the day that changed everything, the day their child would arrive. The hospital was a flurry of activity, but Jackson's focus was entirely on Eli, on the life they had created together. He held Eli's hand through every contraction, every moment of doubt, and whispered words of encouragement, strength, and unwavering love. "You're incredible," Jackson said softly, brushing sweat-soaked hair from Eli's face. "We're in this together. Always." Eli smiled through exhaustion and pain, gripping Jackson's hand tightly. "I know. I couldn't do this without you." Hours passed, the world narrowing down to their shared breath, their intertwined hands, and the miraculous life they had fought so hard to bring into the world. And then, a cry, the sharp, perfect cry of their baby, cut through the sterile air of the hospital room. Tears streamed down both their faces as they looked at the tiny, perfect being before them. Jackson held the child carefully, marveling at the small fingers and toes, the delicate features, the promise of a life filled with love. Eli leaned over, brushing a gentle kiss to the baby's forehead, his own eyes glistening with joy and relief. "Our family," Eli whispered, voice trembling. "It's real." Jackson nodded, feeling an overwhelming surge of emotion. "It's real, and we did this together." The days that followed were a whirlwind of sleepless nights, laughter, and quiet, tender moments. Every small challenge, diaper changes, feeding schedules, first cries, was met with teamwork, patience, and unwavering love. Jackson and Eli found themselves growing in ways they hadn't anticipated, their bond deepening with every shared responsibility, every glance, every soft word whispered in the middle of the night. One quiet evening, as the city lights reflected on the water, Jackson and Eli sat on the balcony with their child nestled between them. The baby's breathing was slow and steady, a gentle rhythm that mirrored the peace settling over their lives. "I never imagined it could feel like this," Jackson murmured, holding Eli's hand. "Complete, whole, full of love." Eli smiled, leaning into him. "I know. It's more than I ever dared to hope for. And now, we have a chance to be everything we want to before each other, for our child." Jackson kissed the top of Eli's head, a gesture of gratitude, love, and devotion. We'll give them everything we can. And we'll do it together, always. The harbor city stretched below them, bustling yet distant, as if granting them a private universe of intimacy and joy. Neon lights glimmered, ships hummed softly, and for the first time since the revelation of Eli's secret, Jackson felt an unshakable sense of belonging. They had weathered fear, secrets, and challenges, and emerged stronger, more connected, and deeply in love. Weeks turned into months, and the couple settled into a new normal. Life was no longer about secrets or uncertainty, but about shared moments, laughter, and the simple joys of family. They navigated societal expectations, legal considerations, and personal growth with grace, leaning on each other for support and guidance. Jackson often found himself marveling at Eli, the resilience, the courage, the quiet strength that had carried them through so much. And Eli, in turn, cherished Jackson's unwavering love, his patience, and the way he could bring calm and clarity even in the most chaotic moments. One afternoon, as they walked along the harbor with their child in a small stroller, Eli stopped and looked out over the water. The sun was low, casting a warm golden glow over the city, the ships, and the waves. "Look at that," Eli said softly. "Even after everything, there's still beauty. There's still hope." Jackson nodded, squeezing Eli's hand. "And there always will be, as long as we're together." Eli leaned into him, resting his head on Jackson's shoulder. "Always," he whispered. As they continued their walk, the city alive around them yet somehow distant, Jackson realized something profound. Love, trust, and family weren't about perfection. They were about resilience, honesty, and the courage to face life's uncertainties together. They had fought through fear, confronted secrets, and emerged stronger, united not just by circumstance but by choice. The months unfolded with gentle rhythms of everyday life, punctuated by laughter, quiet evenings, and the small miracles of watching their child grow. Every milestone was a testament to their love, their commitment, and the unbreakable bond they had forged. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony, the city lights reflecting on the harbor, Jackson held Eli close. "I couldn't imagine doing this with anyone else," he said softly. Eli smiled, resting his head against Jackson's chest. "Neither could I. We're a family, and nothing can change that." The harbor stretched below them, the city alive with possibilities, and for the first time in a long while, Jackson allowed himself to feel fully at peace. They had faced the darkness, the secrets, the fears, and emerged into light, love, and joy. As the night deepened, Jackson and Eli looked down at their sleeping child, hands intertwined, hearts full. "We made it," Jackson whispered. Eli nodded, eyes shining with emotion. "Yes, we did. Together." And in that quiet, perfect moment, beneath the vast expanse of the sky, the gentle hum of the city, and the twinkling lights of the harbor, they knew one unshakable truth. They had found home not in a place, but in each other, in the life they were building, and in the love that would carry them forward, always. With the world moving endlessly around them, they had created a universe of their own, anchored in trust, strengthened by adversity, and illuminated by the profound, enduring power of love. Jackson kissed Eli softly, then brushed a gentle hand over their child's tiny fingers. "Here's to us," he murmured. Eli smiled, leaning into him. "Here's to us," he echoed. And beneath the harbor lights, against the backdrop of a city racing toward the future, Jackson and Eli, together with their child, stepped forward into every unknown, every joy, every challenge with hearts open, love unshaken, and a family made whole. The story of secrets, fear, and revelation had ended not in despair, but in light, in laughter, in quiet, profound happiness. And as the night embraced them, Jackson whispered one last time, for himself and for the future they would share, "Always, Eli. Always." Eli's hand tightened around his. "Always." And there, in the gentle glow of the harbor city, 3 hearts beat in unison, a testament to the enduring, transformative power of love. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.